I love Muscovy ducks. They're a quiet, calm bird with a sweet temperament. They're fast growing and they're great meat birds. And they lay eggs too, so they're really handy to have around on the homestead. They eat plenty of flies, bugs, snails, so they're great in the garden. They eat mice, unfortunately frogs, but they are great birds to have around. There are some things you do need to consider though if you're going to get Muscovy ducks. So I've made a list of 12 things to take into consideration before you get your backyard Muscovy ducks. Hi guys, it's Elisa at Cottage Homesteading, and today we're in the poultry coop. My list of 12 things to consider before investing in Muscovy ducks is in no particular order. Number 1 is housing and protection for your birds. Like with any livestock, you're responsible for their well-being and their safety, and you don't want predators to come in and steal them. So you need to have good fencing, concrete at the bottom like you do with your chicken coops, and that includes the whole yard area so that like dogs and foxes can't dig under. Obviously it's going to depend where you live and what predators you have as to what protection you're going to need for your birds. I need to have protection for the baby birds for the first 4 or 5 weeks from things like ravens and eagles, because they can just come in and swoop them out of the yard if they're free ranging. So the first few weeks I have them in a secure cage where the mum can be and the predators are not. Number 2 is plenty of clean drinking water and water for their pools. I use 1 pool for 5 birds, and in summer it needs to be replaced every day because it can get a bit algae and they seem to bath a lot more in the summer, probably because they want to keep cooler when it gets really hot here. And in winter you can get away with every 2nd day, but that really depends on how many baths you have per birds and how often they're using it. I have 2 rainwater tanks just for the ducks, and then their pool water gets put on the garden anyway, so it's brilliant. It gets used twice. Number 3 is that they muck up the water. Now this is something you've probably heard about them. I thought it would be that they maybe pooped in the water when they were bathing and it would get dirty because they're bathing in it, but it's not just that. They drill around in the mud around the pools or the water sources, and then they're putting it into the pool, so the pool can have silt, this layer of silt. In one day it can have 2 inches of silt right across the bottom of the pool or the drinking bowl or whatever water source it is. And of course they can poop in their water too, and I mean, for me that's just fertilizer for the garden, isn't it really? But they do mess it up, and they mess it up good. They also need to have clean water when they're eating because they like to put it in their mouth and swish it around and help them to swallow what they're eating. So whatever they're eating also can get in the pool as well, or the water source. Number 4 is they eat grass. So wherever you've got your Muscovy ducks, if you have too many for the space and the amount of grass that you've got, they will eat the grass until there is nothing left. No roots, nothing. And then they won't have any food. So you need to make sure you have the right amount of Muscovy ducks for the amount of grass you've got. Don't overdo it. And remember that if you have babies, they eat more than anything, especially when they're teenagers. Typical teenagers, they eat so much. And it's easy for the numbers to increase dramatically when you have a few clutches of babies. So either collect all the eggs or make sure you have enough grass space for the amount of ducks you plan to have at maximum capacity. Number 5 is that they eat some plants as well. Now some plants like lavender and curry plant, rosemary, thyme, I have no issue with. They free range with them perfectly and we don't have any issues. Other things like roses, citrus and my berry plants need to be fenced off from the birds so that they're not eating my goods. They'll eat the leaves of your citrus. So if it's a big citrus tree, then that's fine. They can prune the bottom of the tree and keep it under control. Let a bit of air flow underneath. But if it's a smaller tree, you'll have to fence that off until it's bigger. They're even partial to some succulents as well. And of course, if you've got berry plants, they like to hide in and lay the eggs in amongst the prickly berry plants, and it's hard to get the eggs. Also, they'll eat the berries too. So it's a good idea to fence them off, unless you want to share with them, of course. It really depends on the size of yard you've got, how many plants, and whether you want to share. I don't even let them go near the vegetable garden. They can't even see the vegetable garden because they would eat the other side of what's on the trellises. So my vegetable garden's away from the ducks and protected by the dogs. Number 6, when the ground is wet, the ducks like to play in that water and they put their beaks in and make a big mess. Now, they don't care if it's your best lawn. If you're spilling out a pool over your lawn or under a tree and there's grass or whatever, they will dill around and make it muddy. If it rains, when it rains, if it ever rains, then you have the same thing then too. So they can put little holes in your lawn. Now, if you don't mind this, then that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I just put straw down and we all get along just fine. Number 7, ducks poop, obviously. Now, I think this is a great thing. In the deep litter system, they're pooping and that goes into the compost. And if you'd like to see more about my deep litter poultry system, then I'll put the video link in the description below. So that is a great thing. But if they're pooping on your veranda, at your front door or your back door, not so good. So you're going to need to fence off your veranda areas. I've fenced mine off and I have a little gate that slides so people can get in and out, and the veranda's clean. Number 8, Muscovy ducks can fly. Now, the drakes are too big and heavy, so they really don't get far off the ground, but the girls can fly over 8-foot fences. So you need to make sure you keep them inside your area so that they're not getting eaten by predators. How I do this is I trim one wing once a year. Now, there's some details you need to know about doing that, and if you'd like to see how to trim a duck's wing or to learn about blood feathers, then there's 2 separate videos and I'll leave them in the description below so you can learn more about that. But it's for their own protection, it doesn't hurt them, and it doesn't affect their egg laying capacity or their breeding capacity or hatch rate or anything like that. It's just like having a haircut. Number 9, Muscovy ducks lay eggs in random places. Yes, they'll lay them in the nesting boxes. They'll lay them in the nesting boxes, then bury them over sometimes. And they also can lay them out in the open for everyone to see. And they can even lay them in the pool. They can lay them in hiding spots, which is where you have to search. So every day is like Easter. They lay them in dog kennels, they lay them on the side of cages, sort of hidden. They'll hide under a bush in long grass, and some of them bury the eggs, like I said, with the nesting boxes, but they'll bury them in the straw under a bush, so you don't necessarily know they're there until she goes missing, and then you have to hunt for her, and you'll find that she's on 15 eggs that you could have enjoyed for breakfast. Now, that's great if you want to have babies, but it's not probably a good location for them if you've got predators. So you may have to move them, and mamas don't necessarily always like having their nests moved. They can refuse to sit on them, so that can be a problem. Unless you have a broody hen. Chickens are pretty good. If you've got a broody hen, she'll sit on them. So there's things you can do if you do have a clutch of eggs that you come across and the mum refuses to sit on them if you have to move them for their own protection. You could also leave them there, but if the mum's going to be in danger of getting eaten, it's just not worth it. You do get used to where they lay their eggs. They will have familiar spots, but you do have to search every day. So it's a bit of fun. They do have a tendency to lay their eggs in the morning, so that does help. But I've had ducks wait for me to open the gate where their sleeping area is and race off. And I know they're on a mission to lay an egg in a sneaky spot, so I follow them and I see where they're going. But generally they'll have their spot in the enclosure area where they wake up. But it depends on what your area is like, of course. Number 10, you'll need to have a plan for any babies. Cute little baby ducklings, it's so lovely to have. But in 2 months, you'll have pretty much a whole lot of grown-up birds that are teenagers, and they'll be eating you out of house and home. They'll be eating everything from the grass to the grains, and they eat so much, so much. And of course you can't keep a heap of drakes because they start to become a problem. They'll start to fight with each other, they'll fight with the original drakes that you've got, and then they'll start harassing the ladies, and that can be a problem too. They'll even start to harass the hens because if there's too many drakes, the younger ones seem to be a bit silly and they'll just take whatever they can get. So that you need to protect your chickens and get rid of the birds before it's too late. So we process them or we sell them and rehome them to people who want to have nice, friendly, hand-raised drakes. Number 11, backyard Muscovy ducks can live up to 20 years. So that's a bit of a commitment. You are able to resell them if you decide that they're not for you, because people do buy them. But it is something to consider just the same. Number 12 is duck to drake ratio. If you're going to just have 3 birds and you want to have babies, then have 1 drake and 2 ducks. If you're not breeding them, then you can have 3 ducks and no drake. Or you can have the drake and just collect the eggs every day. If you're going to have more ducks, you can have 1 drake to about 6 ducks quite comfortably. You could probably have 1 drake to 8 or 9 even if you wanted. I have 2 drakes that are brothers. When you're having more than 1 drake, choose brothers that have grown up together so that they get along. My boys are best friends, and occasionally they do have a blue. Not very often. They usually sort it out. But that was more in the early days. And they are best friends. They're always together. So that's my top 12 list of things to consider if you're getting Muscovy ducks. Now I'm not sure if I mentioned you don't want them getting into your drinking water. So if you have a dam or a pond or something like that that you don't want them getting in, you will need to fence that off because they will muck it up. And if it's your drinking water, you don't want that to happen. If you want to know more about Muscovy ducks, then check out my poultry playlist. And if you've got any questions or comments or anything to add to my list, I know some of you will have some things to add, so please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.